2 months ago, I moved from my hometown for the second time. Friendships transitioned to long distance. Family connection went virtual. I left the job I'd always wanted. It had been 2 months since my family and I moved to Nantes, a city in western France about 1/3 the size of my hometown of Seattle. So, how have things been going? What have I learned? What's changed? Well, the answer is simple. A lot. But let me dig in a bit. Upon arriving in France, I was met with little fanfare from the French government. No interrogation, no skepticism, not even a word from the person checking my visa. Literally, not one word. Just like that, in the course of 30 seconds, I had immigrated to France. And because of that, in a sense, this move has felt a lot like moving cross-country in the US, except for the use of the metric system and transition to speaking only in French. This move has been less complicated than moving to San Francisco in my 20s. Yeah, there's a learning curve. Setting up a bank account takes way more effort than you'd expect. You need to do a series of in-person meetings and corresponding via mail. Figuring out how to file French taxes meant going to a small building in a government complex and waiting outside for your name to be called so that you can be whisked into a locked cubicle for about 15 minutes. Getting a transit pass was done via correspondence, with a direct debit from your bank account as the only option for paying. So it took a couple of weeks instead of a few seconds, like in Seattle. But beyond that, how has it really been here? Well, at the risk of sounding like an American stereotype, it's been great. After staying in a short stay apartment for 2 weeks, we moved into our apartment, in a neighborhood where anything and everything is within proximity. There's no less than 4 grocery stores within a 5-minute walk. I'm not even going to bother counting how many are within a 5-minute bike ride. My daughter's school is 5 minutes away, just barely inching out the school that's about 7 minutes away. Community centers, restaurants, cafes, bakeries, pharmacies, doctors, hardware stores, retail, services, it's all accessible. From my house, I can bike anywhere, even to a small village out in the countryside. No longer do I worry about which route is the safest. Hell, I don't even care about which is the fastest. For the first time in my life, I understand the idea of taking the scenic route. It's wonderful. Beyond biking, transit is of course abundant. The city center is pedestrianized. Trains connect us to Paris and beyond. I took a flight to Vienna a few weeks ago for about 60 euros. People here are nice. They talk to each other. In the span of 2 months, my family and I have randomly bumped into neighbors or parents from our child's school out and about more than the entire time we lived in Seattle. These are all things you've heard from just about every other person on YouTube who has moved to or traveled to Europe. And I'm not here to tell you the grass is greener or that this is some magic intrinsic to Europe. That's just not true. Trust me, some Nantais will tell me in the comments of this video about how the city is not that great, but it's all up to perspective. And seriously, Nantes is fucking awesome, and you should at least visit. What I can say for sure though, is that none of this, none, is by accident. The abundance of equitable mobility options, the many parks and public spaces, the access to very cheap or free services, the abundance of social housing and the fostering of social cohesion, the incredible amount of educational opportunities. This is all the result of a conscious effort. And it's thanks to people in the local government who still feel like they can do more to improve the lives of people here. It comes from resident engagement and dialogue. It happens through cooperation between city or metropolitan departments. It's possible because of leftist coalition building and electing leaders who understand the gravity of their jobs. It takes political will that seems radical in America, but just happens to be common sense in a place like Nantes. The city center wasn't always pedestrianized, and I'll talk about that in an upcoming video. There wasn't always a connected, safe bike network. Social housing wasn't always integrated into development projects. There wasn't always a focus on expanding accessible education opportunities in all neighborhoods. Social mixing and the idea of combating isolation of low-income people wasn't always considered. Everything that has made me fall in love with Nantes specifically came from leftist politics. It came from ambition to center community well-being. It came from a concerted movement. Which is to say, at least in terms of urbanist practices, the biggest actual differences between here and the United States are geography and timing. Smart, genuine, and caring people do work in government in the US. I know. I was just with a group of them in Vienna. Video on that coming up soon too. But there's just not enough. The steady stream of big business money into politics, personal ambition coming from milquetoast politicians, and the very well-oiled organizing machine of the right wing in the US has stalled many of our cities. There are good people who want to center community care, social cohesion, universal affordability, and equitable mobility working in city government right now in the United States. Problem is, we're not electing people who care about this stuff at the scale of a place like Nantes. The American right has been organizing on all levels of government for decades in both major parties in the US, which has squeezed out anyone with socialist or social democratic ideals. And while the left has made valiant efforts, the level of organizing is just not the same. And it's hard to out-organize the over-resourced, but it's not impossible. Elections happen often in the US. If you've considered running, just run. Even if you lose, you can use that to build momentum for the next person to win. If you know someone in your community who you feel should run, tell them to run. They may be the next person. As I've said before, build coalitions. It's a long game, but you gotta start somewhere. Bet you didn't expect this to be a video about socialism, did you? Well, here's the reality. This is brought to you by socialist and social democratic principles. So is this. This too. And this. Now it's your turn.